Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 5th week of Obsidian October. This is also the last live session that we're doing for Obsidian October. I hope that you've enjoyed all these previous sessions, and I do hope that you will enjoy the one today. So during the month, we've been looking at how you can get started on plugin development. And I really hope that you've started trying it out yourself. And maybe you've already gotten ready to publish your own plugin by now. Fortunately, this series has also been introducing you to these great plugin developers in the community, and they've shared their stories from developing their own plugins and much more. So I certainly hope that you've enjoyed that as well. And I know that you've been working on your creations for the entire month now, probably, and you're ready to submit them. And I'm happy to announce that there is now a submission form that you can apply to. So on Discord, you can find the submission form on, if you go to the pinned, what was it, the pinned messages, and then if you look at the announcement page, then you can find a submission form over there. So go ahead and submit your plugin, and the panel will evaluate it and review it and look through it. And yeah, it's going to be awesome. So another thing, that due to the 1.0 release and the new theme design, the Obsidian October deadline has actually been pushed to November 13th. So you do have a couple of extra weeks to work on your plugin if you choose to. You can still submit it though. And yeah, so thank you for being part of this journey. And in this final session, we will be looking at how you can be working with files. And Obsidian being a note-taking software, file management is going to be an important part of your plugin, most likely. And after that, we'll take a little break, and then we'll get back to you with our last guest speakers for this series, which is going to be Fibro and Johnny, who's going to talk about the Commander plugin. So stay tuned. Don't leave after this tutorial is over. And yeah, hope you enjoy it. So let's dive right in. So last time we've been working on this Halloween themed plugin, and I was hoping to take it to the next step by continuing on it and adding some note-taking features to it. So what I want to do is I have this this vault here with a bunch of notes. And so for Halloween, you know, there's going to be a lot more monster sightings, like than any time during the year, right? And I want to be able to track them this year. So I want to be able to log whenever I see a monster out there running the streets, and I want to keep track of what was the last thing I saw and what was the time, just so I know when I can, when I should stay indoors, essentially. So that's kind of what I want. I have these files here; they're empty right now. But what I was hoping to do is to build some form of functionality where I can kind of append timestamps to these notes. And then I also want to be able to quickly see what was the last sighting, yeah, that's pretty much what we're going to do for this tutorial. So there's going to be some updating of files. We need to query files. So you'll be able to experience quite a lot from the API. And yeah, so let's look at where we left off last time. We have quite a few features by now. The plugin is looking really good so far. And what I kind of want to do now is that I want to be able to have a way to quickly write a log, like a timestamp to any of these notes whenever I see that creature, essentially. And one great way of doing that, at least that I like, is using a suggest modal, which is not something that we've covered so far. So I was hoping to do that just now. It's actually not that much code to get started with that. I'm gonna see if I can create a new file here. So I'm gonna call it a suggest.ts. This is going to contain my modal, which is going to show basically a list of all the creatures that I have in my vault, and I'm going to be able to select one of them. So just like we've done in the past, we export a new class here. I'm going to call it, let's say, we'll call it creature suggest. Creature suggest. And that's going to extend a class called fuzzy suggest modal. This is a specific type of modal that lets you fuzzy filter the selection that you want to have. This one actually takes an argument here to the actual modal, and this is the kind of the type that you want to be able to select. In my case, I'm just going to do a simple string here. Actually, no. Let's do files here instead. So I want to select based on a number of files, and in this case, you see here that I have a type called tfile. This is a type from the Obsidian API, which you're going to see a lot today. And this is kind of a definition of a file on disk. So I want to be able in this modal to select a file, essentially. And as you can see here, we got some red squiggly lines here. And I can do a quick fix here by adding all the method that I need. As you can see, we need 3 methods here to implement this modal. And somehow I need to return the files, all the items that I'm going to show in this get items. So somehow I need to implement a way to get all the files that I want to select from in this method. The next one here is that, you know, I have this tfile type, but I want to be able to match this with a text string, right? So this basically lets me return the text that I want to match on. And finally, the onChoose item lets me essentially select what happens when I select this creature, essentially. So this one is going to be easy. I'm just going to return the base name of the file, which is going to be the last part of the path minus the extension. So let's start with that. That's going to be easy. The tricky part here is how do we actually list the files in our vault, right? That's the tricky part. So if you go on this.app, as you've seen, we've used this.app instance quite a lot in this series. And this time we're going to be looking at the vault object here. This vault object gives us a range of operations that we can do on files and folders and so on. And in this case, we have two methods here that I want to highlight. One is called get files. This one will return all the files in your vault. That means images, it means notes as well, and basically any file that's in there. But we are most interested in notes right now, which means that I only want the markdown files. So I'm going to use this one. So this is going to give me a complete list of all the notes in my vault. So I'm going to store that in a variable here. This is red because I still haven't returned anything from that method. So what do I want to do here? I have now every single file in my vault, but not all of them are going to be these logs, right? So I need to be able to filter in some way. So I'm going to take all these files, and I'm going to apply a filter here. And what could that be? Well, in my plugin, I decided to let you put your logs anywhere. And I'll find the logs by adding this tag to every monster log, essentially. So I need to be able to filter on all of the files that have this tag. That's how I'm going to find the files that I need. So let's see how I can do that. So we need something in here that lets me look at the content. And turns out that there is actually another very useful object on the app instance, which is metadata cache. So the vault object lets you, query basically disk access. Anything that is on the file system, you can read, you can write and update and so on. But when it comes to notes, there's a bunch of information inside the note, like sections, if you have headings, if you have front matter, and Obsidian actually caches this for you, so you can access that more quickly, so you don't actually have to parse the note yourself. And I kind of want to use that to my advantage here, where I can get the cache for a file if there is one. Otherwise, it will read it and parse it in a moment. Let's do that. Let's store this cache of the file. It turns out that this cached object has a few things here. We can look at the front matter. That's going to be parsed YAML for you. So if you want to, you can use that. You also got all the links and sections and all that. But we're interested in tags in this case. So I'm going to continue with that. And this is actually an array of tag cache objects. So I'm going to have to do another, so basically a tag cache here, another level here. And this tag cache has a property called tag, which is a text string of that actual tag. So I want to match that and see if we have a tag called monster log, then I want to filter out that file essentially. So that's kind of nice, but I need to add this, I need to return this from this filter function. That should be good. So if this find doesn't find that tag, then it's going to return an undefined, which is going to evaluate to a falsy value. So this is going to it's going to filter out all those non-monster log files. So we know that these are monster logs, right? So we can actually return them because this is an array of T files like that. And we still have a method to implement here. For now, let's just do a notice that says that we selected one of these. So let's do the base name here again, just to make it easy. So let's see if we can use this, because now we have a complete suggest modal here. And the next step I need to do is to actually add it to my, just like I've done in the past, I can add it to my app through, let's see. Can never remember if, no, it's what? I can never remember which one it is. It's this and no, sorry. You don't actually register this one. You open it whenever you need it, essentially. So since it's a modal, we haven't covered modals before. This one, when you actually use it, you open it in the moment. So that to do that, we need some form of action. So let's do a ribbon action here, like we've done in the past. What is a good icon for that? Let's do a, I think there is one called scroll. That's pretty fitting. So log monster sighting here. And that's going to take a callback. And here we can then open our creature suggest. There we go. That's going to take an app object. And so now we created a modal, and I want to open it immediately, like that. Now we can go to our Obsidian Vault here, and I can see that I have this scroll icon in the ribbon. If I click that, that will open this modal here with all the names of the creatures that I have in my vault. These are the ones that are common in Scandinavia. So, your miles may vary. You might have other creatures where you live, but these ones are fine for me. So I'm going to select the poltergeist, and that's going to end up showing it up in the corner. Very nice. What else? Well, the next thing we want to do is to actually add a timestamp to this log file, this monster log. And so how do we do that? Let's go back. So we essentially want something here. Turns out that there is actually a pretty good method for this on the vault. So we essentially want to write to this file, and we can do that with a append method here. Let's do that. So this actually takes a file, a T file, and we have that because that's the one that we actually selected. And it takes a string, which is what are we actually going to add to the file. In our case, let's add a date here. So let's do a isostring date. Okay, so just by adding that, we should now be able to write a log to our file. Actually, I want to make this a list. So I'm just gonna prepend this nice hyphen there to begin with. Also, we want this to be a new line. So I want to add it on the last line, basically. So that should work. So now if I add this and I select the Wendigo, then it should have added the timestamp to that file. Very nice. So this is a good step. Now we should be able to start, let's add another one, and it keeps updating, and I can add it to any of these, and it'll just keep appending. So right now, the append method is just adding that text to the end of the file. But if you want to completely rewrite the contents of a note, you also have the modify method as well that you can use. And that will completely replace the content of a note. Okay. So what else? Well, now we kind of had the writing part. So now we're writing data to our logs, which is great. But the next step is that we actually want to, so in my case, I want to be able to tell what was the last sighted monster in my neighborhood. So I want to add kind of a little status bar item here down to the bottom right here. So among the list of, so where you can see 5 words, 39 characters at the moment. So I want to add the last sighted creatures down here. To do that, I can use the, there is actually a method on this object called add status bar item. This is actually, it doesn't take any arguments. This creates a new HTML element that I can use to populate. I basically get a HTML element where I can put stuff in. And I will be updating this, so I kind of want to have a reference to it. So in this way, I'm going to do like a last sighting element. I need to add this as a member to my class here. Sighting element, that's going to be an HTML element, something like that. And what else? Okay, so now we have a little item here. Let's actually try it out just to see that it works. So I'm going to add an element here. I'm going to add some text just to see hello from the status. And now you can see it popping up there. So I'm going to replace this with the last sighted monster. So let's remove that for now. And the tricky part here now is that I kind of want this to be constantly updated, right? And one way I can do that is to set a timer that I keep looking through my vault every other second to see if there's a new monster sighting. Ideally, though, I don't want to be doing that. I want to be able to react whenever there's a new monster sighting, and then I want to see whether that is the latest one, essentially. So I want a way to be able to handle when that happens. Turns out that the vault also lets you register events, which I'm going to do now. And so if you look at the vault, you have this on method here. This on method takes first a string with what type of event am I interested in, essentially. And in this case, whenever someone modifies a file in my vault, I want to know, so I can recalculate the last sighting. And that takes a file and a callback here, like that. Okay, so what do we do in here? That's the question. So I actually have, let's see, I'm gonna copy paste a little here, just so you don't have to watch me type all of this stuff. And I'm gonna walk you through it. So let's see. See if I actually gonna place this. There we go. So what I did right now is there's a lot of code in here. Essentially, most of it is just I'm reading. I'm going to cover this in a bit. I'm reading the data and I'm splitting it on new lines so I can get all the lines in that file. And I'm using this at method here to get the last file, or sorry, the last line in that note. I'm going to see if that line starts with the hyphen and space. In that case, I'm just going to remove those two characters. That's what the dot slice does. And then I'm going to check to see if the last line here is the last sighting. So I'm going to keep a date up here, and I'm going to loop through all the notes, and I'm going to update this last sighting whenever I find it. Right? So that's what this for loop is doing. I'm going to have to implement this monster logs, and I'm going to do that next. And then I'm essentially adding this to the element that we created just now, right? So I'm also adding, this is adding a tooltip that we're going to see down in the bottom. So this get monster logs is essentially what we already did in our suggest here. This is our get monster logs right here. So I'm gonna copy that as is. In your plugin, I suggest that you reuse this code instead of copy pasting it. So I'm gonna do get monster logs here. I'm gonna paste that, and I now have that method, right? Up here, I want to take a second to explain this. So whenever I get this modify event, I'm going to get that for every single file in the vault. So whenever I update any file, I'm going to get this event. So I need to first make sure that this is indeed a monster log. Otherwise, I'm just going to ignore it. So that is the second part here. The first part here is something I see a lot of people asking about. And what I'm getting here from the modify event is actually something called a T abstract file. So these modify events can return a modification to a folder, for example. So we need to first make sure that this modify event came from a file and not a folder. So I can do that. I can check if an abstract file is an actual T file by using this instance of keyword here. So this is going to return a Boolean to tell me whether or not this is indeed a T file. But I could just as easily done a T folder here, and that is instead going to check whether this is a folder. But right now, I'm interested in files, so that's what I'm going to do here. And this is monster log. This is a convenience. Let's see. Let's create that one. I actually have it. Let's create that one. Let's create that one. So this is actually get monster. So is monster log, and this is essentially what we have in here. So let's reuse that. Put that in this file here. So now we need to pass that file. So let's do that in here. So if this file here is a monster log, then I'm going to return a Boolean. And so now I can call that here. I can say that return whether this is a monster log, and I'm going to pass the file there. So this has not, yeah. So I actually need to turn this into a Boolean. This is a TypeScript hack, but you can actually do the double exclamation mark here, and that will actually turn something into a Boolean. That is a false value that you're turning into a Boolean. So that is a little trick there for you. So now that we have that, we have the monster log there, and down here, we can see that we don't care if this is a folder or if it's not a monster log. Then we just return early here. Otherwise, we're going to check to see whether the last timestamp is the last cited value. And finally, I'm gonna replace what's in the last citing element down in the status bar, and I'm gonna create a new citing here. So let's see if I save that, and now I'm gonna see if that works. Let's click here. So I'm gonna add a new myling citing. That's gonna pop up there, and now you can see that the myling is the last cited creature that I saw, and so right now, that's the latest one. If I add another one here, for example, a Wendigo, then you can see that it updates. So that one is automatically updating whenever you're modifying that note, and then we're running this logic to see whether it's the last citing or not. So as you can see, there is quite a lot of stuff going on in here. There is a lot of things you can do with files. If you check on this app vault, you can see a ton of methods here that you can use. For example, you can delete files, you can create new ones, and so on. So even though the kind of the feature that I want to develop is finished now, I would want to highlight a few more things because it's something I see that a lot of people run into. First thing is what we did down here, right? I'm using this cache read function here. Why am I using this one when there's clearly a method called read here? So what's the difference here? Well, the cache read is going to give you a more better performing plugin, because this, if you've already read this file in the past, you don't have to go to the file system again, essentially. But the problem with cached file is that you potentially have an out-of-date T file that you're working on. So let's say that you want to read something from the file system, modify it, and then write it right back using, say, the modify method here. Then if you're using cache read, then you're potentially modifying based on old content. So if you immediately want to write it back, use the read one. But if this is only for displaying data, then I suggest that you use the cache read method instead. What else? Yeah, so what we're doing here, and get monster logs here, you can see that we're actually looping over every single note in our vault. This is, for big vault, this could be, take a little time. This is cached, however, so it's not super slow. It doesn't have to go to disk necessarily. In fact, you can see here that it doesn't actually return a promise, which means that there's no disk operations going on here. So this is really fast, but still there could be a lot of entries here. So if you know in advance what file you want to look for, then you can use this this app vault get abstract file by path, and this takes a file path to the actual file, and that's going to return that T abstract file for you. And again, when you get this, you need to have the same, most likely you're going to want to do this check here for whether it's T file or a folder, for example, in order for you to be able to use it. So that's a good trick. Another thing I can highlight here is if you can see here that I'm actually passing a string with an actual path within the vault. If you have total control of these paths, it's totally fine. But if these paths are user defined, for example, if you have a setting that lets you, for example, set a path to a template or something like that, then that's going to be user defined, and they can, pass all sorts of strings in there. So if you accept user defined paths, I recommend that you use the normalize path function from the Obsidian API. And what that's going to do is that it's going to clean up that path from the user. It's going to remove superfluous slashes, and it's gonna make sure that it's nice and clean. It's going to handle cross-platform paths for you, so you don't have to take that into account. So make sure that you use that whenever the user is supplying the path for your plugin. That is pretty much everything I wanted to cover. Obviously, there's a lot more you can explore here when it comes to file management. If you actually look at like I said, if you take a look at the vault object here, hopefully a lot of these will make sense to you. But yeah, they're all available there, and feel free to explore them on your own. Cool. That is everything I had for this tutorial. To round up here, feel free to explore this on your own. What kind of methods you have? What can you do? What other events can you subscribe to, and so on. And yeah, I'm gonna get back to you in just a little bit. I'm gonna take a little break, get something to drink, And then I'm going to be back with our guest speakers. And yeah, so stay tuned. I'll see you in a little bit. Hi, and welcome back, everyone. I'm super excited about our next speakers. They're the authors of the Commander plugin, and they're going to be speaking about how they kind of designed and implemented it. I'm super excited to have them over. Hi, guys.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good.
Well, I'm actually gonna leave it to you because you have prepared an awesome presentation for us, haven't you?
Yes, I hope you find that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, awesome. So I will leave it to it to talk about the Commander plugin.
Okay,
Enjoy.
when I close my window, there's like a reflection that's hitting my face.
No worries.
Yeah, okay, so I guess I will start already. I will introduce myself first. So I'm a CS student and a junior front-end developer working at a small startup here in Germany. And I also worked on lots of different Obsidian plugins before as well. So I think the two biggest ones are the dictionary plugin and the Obsidian charts plugin. Maybe you know these.
Sorry, I don't know what's going on with that lighting. So I'm Johnny.
Yeah, don't worry.
I'm a junior UX UI designer at a product consulting agency. This is the second plugin that I've designed for Obsidian. The first one was Workspaces Plus with Nothing is Lost, another Obsidian community member. Yeah, so throughout this whole month, we've seen some cool demonstrations of how to build a plugin. And now with our presentation, we want to share the behind the scenes of what that plugin building process has looked like for us collaborating as a team. So in this presentation, we're going to talk about what our plugin commander does, how the project got started, how it's managed, designed, and developed. We're going to share our reflection. We did a retrospective together, and we're going to share what we talked about then, how we worked together. Then we're going to talk about what's next for Commander, and finally, we'll share some advice based on our experience.
Yeah, so I'll be starting with the question, what even is Commander? Commander allows you to easily add commands to various places in Obsidian's UI, and those include the left ribbon and the mobile quick action, the tab and status bar, the editor and file menu, and one recent addition we just released today, the Explorer pane. Commander now also includes the advanced toolbar plugin I made and has support for basic macros. That's all in the newest update we just released today. On the next slide, let's watch the video first. You can see how you can easily add commands. So the first one is just a basic save the current file in the left ribbon. And just to demonstrate, I also hide all the other commands that are there. And now I'm creating a shortcut for the export to PDF plugin, or not plugin, but a command that Obsidian provides in the page header. Yeah, I hope that made sense, and now you know what Commander is. So now we'll be talking about the motivation behind the project. So as you probably know, Obsidian is set up to support a diverse set of use cases, and so with our plugin, we are attempting to make the UI more flexible to support these many different ways of using Obsidian. And yeah, how did it came to be? I initially created the customizable sidebar plugin, which was modified by 2 other developers who adapted it to work with different parts of the UI. So the customizable sidebar plugin only worked for the left ribbon, and then other developers made one for the right-click menu or for the status bar and title bar, I think. And then Johnny had the idea to consolidate all those plugins into one, which does all those things, but way more polished. So as I just explained, Commander had 2 basic goals. We wanted to consolidate all plugins to that add commands to different parts of the Obsidian's UI, and we wanted to make it easier to add and remove those from the UI. And Johnny will be talking about how we achieved that later on. But now that you know what Commander is and how it came to be, let's talk about how it was made. As we are in different time zones, most of our work is asynchronous, and that's why we used an iterative approach, meaning we developed and designed features at the same time, which created a quick feedback loop, which helped us also to improve each other's ideas much more easily. And yeah, to collaborate, we used ClickUp for task management, Discord for general conversations, Figma for everything design related, and GitHub for the code side of things. Yeah, we also received feedback forms from users via Google Forms, and we also have pre-made forms on GitHub issues. Yeah.
So I skipped that slide a little early. Yeah, so in ClickUp is what we're using for project management, and we use a Kanban with the following statuses. So on the very left, we have the backlog, which is where bugs, enhancements, ideas, feedback from users, all of this will go into that little column. And then tickets are moved to the to-do column when we're planning on working on them. In progress is self-explanatory, and close is also kind of self-explanatory, but it's just when the bug has been fixed, the feature is released. This system makes it easy for us to jump back into the project at any moment after any period of time and quickly recontextualize. So then in Figma, Figma is the tool I use for creating my designs. This is a screenshot of an early design for the new macros feature that we just released. In Figma, you can leave comments on designs, which you see here as those little profile icons. And this lets us have discussions about specific details or areas of the designs. So in this particular discussion, Philip told me that it would make more sense to have the icon picker take the form of a button rather than a drop-down menu field. And then here on the right, this is the latest design where you can see the icon picker button is in the top right of the modal. And what I think is important about talking in the comments of Figma is that it facilitates discussions like these about the feasibility of an idea in the same tool where that idea is being designed. And this helps us iterate and make changes to those designs very quickly. So now we zoom out and you can see this is almost all of my canvas in Figma. I primarily worked on one page for most of the project up until now because this allowed me to design many disparate parts of the plugin quickly without having to navigate to different files or pages. The trade-off for that speed, however, is that it's difficult to navigate and find particular designs after being away from the project for any period of time. You can see it looks a little messy. So now that the project is more mature and we have most of our core features out, I'm going to be spending time organizing this mess and making it a little easier for myself and Philip to navigate. So for designing Commander, I have two guiding principles, more or less. And the first is to try and keep designs consistent with Obsidian's core design. And that way, users will have a seamless experience using our plugin because it'll all hopefully be designs that are familiar to them. And the second is to try and reduce interaction cost as much as possible. And I'm going to explain what that is in the next slide. So I believe that the concept of interaction cost is important to remember when designing a user experience. Generally, it refers to the amount of effort required for a user to achieve their goal. And this could be mental effort, such as having to remember a hotkey or the location of a feature in the interface, or it could be a physical effort, like needing to navigate through multiple menus or having to move your mouse cursor very precisely because the button you want to click is very small or in a crowded section of the interface. How many steps does the user have to take? What is getting in the way of them achieving their goal? How can we remove these barriers so that the user has a productive, enjoyable experience? This is what I'm thinking about when I'm doing my design work. So now I'll share two examples of design decisions that I made in Commander with this concept in mind. Okay, in this first example, the goal of the user is to add a command to the ribbon. And previously with Philip's customizable sidebar plugin, what that would look like is you would open Obsidian settings menu and you'd open the customizable sidebar plugin menu. I should note, you open the menu and then you have to do a visual scan of the menu items to find your plugin settings menu. And then the same process happens when you open the customizable sidebar menu plugin. You have to do a scan of the interface to find where that add command button is. And then you would click the add command button and add the command using a series of prompts. And then, so the alternative method that we've introduced in Commander to achieve this goal of adding a command to the ribbon is to hover your mouse over the empty space after the last command in the ribbon, then click the plus icon that appears, and then add the command using a series of prompts. So a little bit less effort with that alternative method. So yeah, with that first method of achieving that goal, the one source of effort is that switching context by navigating through multiple pages or menus can sometimes make it hard to remember what your original task was. And there's also effort associated with having to scan through those menus, like I mentioned, especially when you have many plugins to find your one menu. And so what's nice about this alternative method for adding commands is that with the hover icon, the action that we want to perform, which is adding the command, is able to be performed closer to the object that we want to perform that action on, which is the ribbon. So you want to add a command to the ribbon, you just move your mouse over the ribbon, and the action you want to do, you can do it there. And the trade-off with this design, though, is having that icon only appear on hover might not be easy for users to discover. And even if they know about it, they may forget that that option is there because it's only appears on hover. So in the second example, there's another example of reducing interaction costs or reducing effort. The goal of the user is to hide a command that's been added by Obsidian or another plugin. In a previous version of Commander, if you wanted to hide commands in the ribbon, for example, you navigated to the Hide Commands submenu in our plugin settings menu. And in the in the current version that I'm showing here now, it's a little more intuitive because we made the hide commands feature available within the menu of the particular UI element. So if you want to hide a command that's been added to the ribbon, you would navigate to our ribbon menu and scroll down and you find the hide commands section. And then actually to take the concept of closeness of actions and objects further with this particular design, we might consider making it so that the user could hide a command by right-clicking it in the ribbon itself instead of needing to go to the menu. We have not done that yet, though.
Yeah, so now that you've heard Johnny's side of the design process, I will be talking about the development side of things. And I pretty much use the standard Obsidian tools that the sample plugin recommends. So that is the TypeScript programming language. And I also use the Visual Studio Code editor that most other developers use. And the only real addition is the use of the Preact UI library, which works almost the same as the popular React library, while being much more suited for being embedded into another app. And on the next slide, I will be explaining why. So there are lots of different UI libraries to choose from. And I think the most used one in the Obsidian ecosystem is actually Svelte. And I used Svelte before and I really liked it, but I wanted to improve my React skills because it's still the most in-demand skill for web developers. And that was important for me at the time. But why did I choose Preact and not React? Well, as you can see in the little table down there, a basic plugin using React is already over 200 kilobytes in size, while the whole of Commander, with its graphics, is still under half of that, meaning it loads much faster, especially on mobile. And because I was learning it while building something with it, there are now lots of places with messy code that I would need to clean up now that I know better.
So earlier this month, Philip and I got together to reflect on working together on this project. We discussed what worked, what could be improved, and what we're going to focus on going forward. So starting with what went well, collaboration. So with ClickUp, Figma, Discord, I think we were able to, or we both think we were able to create a pretty efficient design process despite working asynchronously and in different time zones. The project was well scoped, meaning that we knew from the start what we wanted to do, and we were able to break it down into manageable chunks of work. For expectations, from the start of the project, although we never explicitly discussed this, we both kind of understood that this is a side passion project. And because of that, neither of us could or would be available all of the time to work on it. And this mutual understanding has made collaboration very pain-free and enjoyable. And then lastly, the number of downloads and stars on GitHub shows that people are interested in it, at least, and they're getting some value from Commander. And then going to what could be improved, you saw my Figma, that needs to be more organized. And then, as Philip mentioned, his code could be cleaner. What went badly? Nothing went badly. So that's cool. And then the focus for the next period of time, we're going to be asking ourselves how we can work more efficiently as an asynchronous team. Although I think we already work very great, but there's always room for improvement. Yeah, I'm going to organize my Figma. And then Philip is going to clean up his code.
Exactly. So, what are the next steps for Commander itself? There are still a lot of planned features for Commander in the future. So the first one we are going to work on next is the improvement of the macros we just added. So currently you can only add different commands and a basic delay, but in the future maybe you can add commands for the editor, so you can basically type in the editor using a basic macro. And we want to respond to GitHub issues because currently there are lots of them and we didn't have the time to work through them. And of course, there are lots of different small UI and UX improvements or updates we want to make. Yeah.
So the advice or the learnings that we would like to share from working on this project together for the past couple of months. First one is to set expectations at the beginning of the project for people who are collaborating. Like I mentioned before, we kind of had a mutual expectation, but you can understand how issues can arise if people are not on the same page when they're working on something. From the designer perspective, I would encourage people to be thoughtful about their designs because a developer has to make them, and communication is very important between these roles to make sure that each person understands the feasibility of features and if the effort is worth the amount of potential value that those features might bring. Collaborating with a developer has helped me, or collaborating in general, collaborating with a developer helps you, as a designer, helps you create a project that can be tested by the public, which can show off your UI, UX skills, and help you learn about working with a developer. And then one other advice I have is to share, if you have an idea, share it in Discord or on the forum because the community is very welcoming. And then I guess another note to add to that is when you have an idea, try and flesh it out as much as possible, either with like a mock-up, like a rudimentary mock-up, or wireframes or anything, because that just, it helps ground that idea a little bit more, and make it easier for the developer to visualize how much work it might take to make that idea.
Yeah, so most of these advice also applies to developers. And for example, before I worked on Commander with Johnny, I haven't really worked in a team before. And now I use that skills every day in my job. And yeah, so to sum up, it's hard to work in a team when you only learn things or learned to build things alone. And the second point, learning by doing is much more effective than going through programming courses, and it's even more fun if people are using what you made. So again, as I said, I learned React or Preact while building Commander. And yeah, it's what I really think is inspiring is that this project helped us build our portfolios, which in turn helped us to get jobs. And now that's the last slide, and we want to thank the Obsidian team for giving us the opportunity to present, and we want to support the we want to thank the Obsidian community for the feedback and support, and also thank to the contributors to Commander and also the other developers that adapted the customizable sidebar plugin.
And thanks to you for sharing your experiences working together. I think this is a really good presentation. I think it highlights, something that you typically don't see. Typically, when you're starting with your plugin, you're working on it yourself, and a lot of the times you're just lost in the dark as a developer. Like, what should this be doing? Like, should I have this button over here? And it's really inspiring to see you working together to tackle these issues. And really, really cool to see combining skill sets, especially. So we do have one question here, which I actually thought was really good. So how do you balance discoverability with intuitiveness? I kind of want to know this too.
That was a tough question. So discoverability, that's for a user if they're gonna discover a feature. If they for them to, well, I need to think for a second. Well, I can't answer the question.
Well, I mean, yeah. So it's finding it, right?
I almost don't see them on the same scale, it's needing to balance them. Intuition, when you're trying to figure out what's intuitive for the user, that comes from user research and talking with the people who are using your plugins. And then after that step, the discoverability of that feature, that really what you're balancing with trying to make a feature discoverable is you're balancing that feature with the rest of the interface and all the other features. So they're kind of on different levels, but they're related. And I'm a junior designer, so I'm learning about this stuff too. That's probably the best answer I can give right now.
Yeah, but I think we can actually improve a bit on that, because right now we have these little add command buttons in the UI, for example, on the ribbon, and you have to hover over them to actually see them because they are invisible by default. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of intuitive because it's on the UI element you would want your command to be, but it's not really discoverable at the moment, at least.
And I was even thinking, actually, I wasn't sure if I should add this into the presentation, but the part about closeness of action and objects and thinking about intuition, I think my actual intuition for if I want to add a command to any part of that interface is that I should move my mouse cursor over that element and then right click, because typically you have a context menu from right clicking. And so I would expect to see an option in that. But right now, as we have it, I don't think you can right click on the div or the ribbon itself. So we might want to consider making a little update.
I started watching this. I started thinking, is there an opportunity here for a shared Figma project where we can start working on some of the design patterns that we can use throughout plugins? Because because I definitely, as a plugin developer, I run into these issues as well, where how should I this is what I want to use. How do I use the components that Obsidian provides to me, and how do I compose them together? Because and I think a lot of people, they experience plugins that might not feel necessarily like they're part of Obsidian itself. So if we kind of what you've basically been starting on, how can we develop that into like a design language that plugin developers could go to and kind of get inspiration for, okay, I want to be able to change this property. Is there like a pattern that I could use?
I think that would be super valuable. And I've been thinking about that for a little bit of time too, because as I have worked on Workspaces Plus and now Commander, there are UI patterns, and it's very helpful, especially for the developers, yes, but for the designers when we have ideas and we want to just pull components quickly and like see what something looks like. Yes, that'll be very valuable. It's something we should probably work on.
So another question from me is, what was it like? You mentioned that you had a lot of collaboration over the Figma project, just trying out different designs and how this feels like.
Mm-hmm.
How compared to actually, building it and, testing it out? How much did you do? Because sometimes you don't know until you actually click around and get a feeling for how it works, right? Could you, elaborate on like the balance of trying things out in Figma versus trying things out and then reverting it, maybe the implementation?
Yeah, so I think we haven't really found a great workflow for that yet, because right now, if I build a new feature, I just send the plugin files over to Johnny for him to test. And if he likes the improvement, we will release it. But yeah, maybe it would be better for, I don't know if there's another way, but that's how we are doing it right now.
I guess the benefit of using Figma is that it's quicker. You can change things easily just by clicking around, and whereas actually building the feature, it takes a little longer.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
That feasibility. Yeah, I mentioned feasibility a lot because with that example of the macros plugin, when I put the icon picker as a drop-down menu, it only takes me a little bit of time to make that little menu field in the design. And then Philip can come in and then take that, try and code it, and then say that actually doesn't make sense because of X, Y, and Z. So there's a slight disconnect between the designer tool and the developer tool, which maybe will be merged someday in the future. But it's not so bad.
So I'm gonna finish up with one last question for you from the comment section.
Mm-hmm.
Who made the spooky characters for your slides?
I made those. I had a lot of fun making those too. I was frantically trying to figure out how I can make a cool Halloween theme for this presentation. And then I realized we already have our little commander guy. Yep, you got the shirt. You're ready. Yeah, we've got a little commander guy, so I thought I could give him some costumes. Why not? Thanks for pointing that out. I had fun making those.
Yeah, they look great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining in today. This has been real exciting to hear. I feel inspired. I hope that there are UX designers out there listening to this, and that we're going to see even more of these collaborations in the future, for sure. So thank you so much. Again, this has been the fifth and final Obsidian October session. I hope that you've enjoyed them, and we're definitely planning things for the future. But until next time, thank you so much. And I hope to see your plugin being published soon. Thank you all for tuning in. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.